presentation.
And you're watching Interface here on SABC3. Good evening to you. My name is Tembi Samachele. The National Youth Development Agency is in the spotlight tonight. Vusi Tembekwayo, a well-known motivational speaker, has started a Facebook campaign called Stop NYDA. He claims that the agency is nothing more than a political fleecing institution that benefits only a few politically connected individuals. Now, tonight on Interface, we've invited Vusi to come and talk to us about the issues that he raises, and we've also invited the NYDA's CEO, Stephen Ngubeni, to give us the agency's side of the story. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take your SMSs tonight due to some technical glitches, but you can take part in this discussion via our Facebook page. As always, Interface on SABC3. Let's welcome our two guests, Vusi Tembekwayo and also Stephen Ngubeni. Thank you so much to both of you for coming through, and welcome.
Hi.
Stephen, let's start with you, just painting a picture of why there's a need for your organization. Why is it that the NYDA is an important institution?
Well, it is an important institution for obvious reasons. South African population, young people, they account for almost 50% of that. We know for a fact that young people are also composing about 70% of the 25% unemployed people in the country. We are talking the narrow definition of unemployment here. Young people are the ones that are most or greatly affected by the scourge of poverty, the scourge of unemployment, the scourge of inequality, access to education.
Yes,
and
we
training
know all of these, but the
Yes.
question I'm asking is, you had the Umsobomvu Youth Fund, you had the National Youth Commission, then you had the merger to form the NYDA. Why was it important to do that? What are you doing that those organizations couldn't?
I was going to get to that. If
I'm
you
glad.
were a bit patient.
We don't
but
have much
anyway,
time.
All right, we'll try and be short. Well, you'll remember that there used to be Umsobomvu Youth Fund and the National Youth Commission. They had two different mandates, and those mandates were very narrow. And by the way, these mandates are defined by the law, they're defined by the Act of Parliament. They don't just wake up in the morning and decide what they are going to do. And the first mandate in relation to the NYC had to do with them advancing advocacy and lobby with government departments for them to take serious the affairs of the young people in the country. They didn't have a very big budget. They didn't have any tangible projects to implement. Theirs was just to mainly deal with policy, lobby, and advocacy. And Umsobomvu Youth Fund, under the wing of the Department of Labor, was mainly focusing on enterprise development and giving young people skills for them to can find work. These are the only areas they were focused on. The National Youth Development Agency has got about 10 objects that they need to cover. It's not a narrow mandate, it's a very big mandate. Normally when we speak about this, people like us to only limit ourselves to economic participation, or what they call then enterprise development, or to limit ourselves to lobby, advocacy and policy. But it goes beyond that. There's social cohesion as part and parcel of our mandate. There's national youth service as part and parcel of our mandate. There's issues of health and well-being that we need to deal with. So the mandate as defined by the Act of Parliament given to us as a government parastatal defines the reason for our existence.
All right. Now, fast forward to 2012. If you look at your own Facebook page, if you look at what Vusi has done, and we'll talk to him about that in a minute, if you look across the newspapers and television and everything that young people are asking, the one question that still remains is, what have you done for the youth since your establishment in 2009?
Right. That question is bestly responded to by first saying young people are almost 8 million people who are unemployed in the country.
Sure.
The National Youth Development Agency, with the resources that is given to it, we are only able to touch lives of an average of about 1 million, 1.5 million per year. When there are 8 million young people that are sitting there affected by unemployment, who are not in the universities, who are not owning any business whatsoever. If we're only going to attend to about 1 million, in fact, in terms of enterprise development, in terms of job creation, even much more lesser. yes, the remainder of those young people, which is the biggest number, will make the biggest and the loudest noise, and justifiably so, because they are faced with these squalors and they don't see a hope that these things will happen. But the National Youth Development Agency has done its bit. We have been given a mandate. Targets have been set before us year in, year out. We are told we met and surpassed all those targets from time to time. But these targets are not enough to say we are eroding the backlogs of the young people out there. And that is why young people still don't believe that somebody's life somewhere is changed.
Okay, Fusi, let me bring you in here. The NYDA is doing its bit. It's touching as many young people as it can. What's your issue?
I think the question as young people we need to ask ourselves is that enough? And maybe just as a corrective statement, our view is not that the NYDA is a political fleecing institution. We're not of that view at all. Ours is rather questioning, is it effective given the money it's been given? That's really where the heart of the issue is. And let's look at the facts. What are the facts? In the 2010-2011 year, the NYDA was given about 370 odd million and some change. They raised some more money from loans that they'd given out from the demutualization funds given to them, some of the youth fund. It's a long story. But at the heart of the issue is they had about 410 million rand worth of resources with which to play. 168 million of that went to salaries, only 77 million went to funding entrepreneurs. We're of the view that that mixture cannot be allowed to exist. It cannot be allowed to exist when the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, says the average and alarming rate at which youth entrepreneurs, youth development and youth unemployment should exist in any country is 12.9%. Our figures are sitting at north of 50%. And so really the question we need to be asking is, are the resources being plowed in the direction they ought to be plowed? So the Stop the NYDA campaign was driven by two impetuses. One, saying, I am a young person, I'd like to think I'm fairly well educated, I have resources, I can access the internet, but I don't even know what Stephen and his guys are doing. So if I don't know, what then of young people sitting in rural areas?
But is the Facebook campaign the way to go about finding out?
Absolutely, because what it does...
No, hold on. Why not go to the NYDA and say, please give us the facts, please educate us as young people, what are you doing for us?
We've done that several times without success.
Okay.
Without success. So the campaign really was born of frustration to say, well, if you will not engage us, we'll engage you.
Why are you not engaging them?
Well, I don't think that is the absolute truth. I'm seeing Vusi for today for the first time. And I was hoping that even after this interview we'll talk. On the Twitter, when I started the campaign, I dropped through the organization, the NYDA, a tweet that says, you are welcome to come and meet with the CEO of the NYDA so that you can have answers to the question. And he went on to say, no, we would like to meet, but this must be as transparent as possible. And we were waiting for that to happen. We were told that yesterday, June 16, they will be organizing some kind of a conference for young people where we will be called in to come and respond to certain questions. We're prepared to go and do that yesterday. We're going to apportion some resources to go to them, but it has not happened.
Okay.
I have dropped myself on my own status on Twitter because I have not received any informal request for an appointment from them, and neither any of my directors in the NYDA to say, please, young people who are identifying with the Stop NYDA campaign are prepared to come and ask you questions. So that has not been the attempt, but we're more than prepared to engage with them.
Well, I think let me just correct Stephen, and Stephen, I'd implore you not to be disingenuous here, but they did respond saying we can have a meeting. I responded saying, I don't want to be the bearer of youth news. If any young people who have concerns must have the ability to sit down with Stephen and pose those questions to him. And so I said, we can meet as long as the meeting is open and transparent. That was 3.5 weeks ago. We've not yet heard anything, right? We then asked about a week ago, saying to their NYDA handle on Twitter, you requested we meet. We've made clear our intention we'd like to meet. We haven't heard a date from you. And by the way, Stephen, our think tank date was set for the 25th of this month, not the 16th. So we'll be sitting on the 25th as young people. We'll be engaging on these matters because we believe as ourselves we need to draft our own position statement. But the question remains and is still lingering. Are they doing what they need to be doing? Is it effective? And is it addressing the issues that needs to be addressed?
And that's the question I want us to answer right after this break. Do stay with us. Remember that you can take part in this discussion on our Facebook page, Interface on SABC3. Don't go away. And this is Interface on SABC3. We're talking to the CEO of the National Youth Development Agency, Mr. Stephen Ngubeni, and also Vusi Thembekwayo, who is a motivational speaker and a champion of the Stop the NYDA campaign on Facebook. Vusi, if you look at some of the stories and testimonials on the NYDA's website, you're hearing of people that are taking trips to, for example, the US to go and learn about business. You're hearing of people getting loans to start their own businesses. Maybe not enough, but surely you can give them some credit to say you are doing something.
And we've not said they're not. The question is, are they doing enough with the resources
Stephen
they've
has
been given?
said
No,
they're not enough. They're not touching as many as they can touch.
I think, and let me put it to you this way. On a balance of probability, if you're going to say you're affecting young people, and a question is posed to young people, are you being affected by this organization in a positive way? And 99% of them come back and say no. There's a question
that statistic is not correct according to what he said, because he's saying you've got about 8 million young people that you're not touching, but you've got about 1 million that you're touching every year. Well, or 1.5 million.
Well, and I think even those questions need to be questioned. Stephen's own 2IC, Katu, said to me that they reach about 440,000 young people in a year. And all you need to do is just break the statistic down, because what does that mean? We have a year with 365 days in it, because it's a limited amount. There's only 240 of those days in which you and I work. The NYDA would have you and I believe that they're reaching 2,000 people every single day. And if they're reaching 2,000 young people every single day, then the question is, where are they, and why are their stories not being told? Because at the heart of this are two fundamentals. There either is an organization not delivering, which is our core belief, or they're not communicating the extent to which they're delivering, which in and of itself is an organizational failure. But both issues lament that young people need to get involved and say, wait a minute. So that's why Stop the NYDA campaign. Stop the NYDA campaign was never about saying we don't want them. It was about saying, hold on, Mr. President, before you give these fellows more money, can we just please sit down with them, let them give us an understanding around what it is they've been doing, the difference it's made, so we can see it and see whether or not it's tangible. And let's just delve a bit deeply into those numbers. Allow me a moment to do this. The NYDA gave out 77 million rand in loaning for businesses last year, but they gave it to 8,135 businesses. By our number, that's around 5,000 rand per business. If you show me a business that can create a high impact generational business for 5,000 rand startup capital, I'll pay you. It's just not possible.
Let's give Stephen a chance to answer. He's raised some very pertinent points.
Well, I think the fundamental question is NYDA doing what it is supposed to be doing? And the answer to that is that right at the beginning of the year, Vusi, I would like to invite you every financial year. An annual performance plan is put on the table to say this organization, given this amount of money that we have allocated to them, this is what they can do. It is at that time that we must question whether these things that are to be done are actually relevant or not. At the end of the year, I'm saying 3 years of our existence, we have met those expectations, we have surpassed them. Right, so the NYDA is doing what it is expected to do. But is
the budget that you're getting, one of the things that Vusi is raising is that the budget that you're getting is not going necessarily towards advancing the purpose of young people. Because even your own chairman, Andile Lungisa, in Parliament, admitted that you're using about 42% of your budget on salaries, when in fact you could actually cut that down to 25%.
And how do you cut it exactly?
You pay yourselves less.
No, let me tell you something that you don't know. When we inherited staff from the former UIF and we inherited staff from NYC, conditions given to us as the new leadership in terms of the Labor Relations Act law was clear. Their conditions will never be worse off. Their conditions will either be the same or be better. So you inherit that salary bill and you also can't retrench them. That's one thing that you must appreciate. Majority of the people that are working for the NYDA today have been working for the former two organization, UIF. So in any event, the two organization would have incurred the same salary bill even today. Myself, for example, because that's allegation number one, the CEO is getting a bit too much than what is supposed
1.8 million.
Hold on then, let me tell you. When I came in, I didn't accept a cent more than what the previous CEO, the acting CEO of the NYDA, the former CEO of UIF was getting. Why does it become a question now that new leadership is coming in? If only I came in and I required more than what was being offered on the table, it would be another question. But in any respect, I think the question should be about programs and projects of the NYDA. And I'm saying, yes, to a great extent, most of the money goes to operational costs, but there is money that goes to youth development and to ignite what youth development is supposed. But let me tell you this, even if you were using the entire 400 million for youth development matters, you wouldn't make the impact that is supposed to be made on the young people themselves. Because like I said, 8 million young people were only reaching about 1 million young people.
Stephen, this is public money. And so when we question the salary bill as South Africans, we're well within our rights to do so.
Correct.
Surely you appreciate that.
Correct.
And Vusi, I see you itching to weigh in on this one.
Look, I think we can't play politics with issues that affect young people. The facts are that a young black person is 9 times more likely to be unemployed than their white counterpart. 9 times more likely. I can't sit here and accept Stephen telling me we inherited a salary bill, because what he's not telling you is in the same year they employed about 44 more people. So if you inherited an overburdened staff, why did you hire more people? Because now you're going to spend more on salaries. 1. 2, if, as you say, the previous CEO was earning more, that is not at the heart of the question. The question is, what is the work you're doing? How much money are you given to do it? And what is apportionate to what you should be earning? Nobody's saying the CEO ought not to earn money. Certainly nobody in the CEO's position should be earning and earning well. But the question is, how much ought they to be earning commensurate with what it is they're doing? That's really at the heart of what the issue is here. We're of the view that the current numbers just aren't good enough. Facts are, and again, the OECD says this, the only way you really impact youth entrepreneurship, because by the way, the very first people who suffer as casualties of recessionary times are young people. Because what happens is businesses stop freezing, stop recruiting, and young people are beneficiaries of that recruitment. The only way you do it is by bolstering entrepreneurship, because the only way you impact employment is by implanting output in any economy. And we're not seeing the NYDA playing a critical role in that space.
To agree with you, some of the Twitter messages that agree with you, Vusi, and I'm posing this to you, Stephen, they say that Linda Maseko says the NYDA thrives on greed. Sihle says some of the stories from people who have been failed by the NYDA are very evident. And another one says the NYDA sets low and mediocre goals and then pats itself on the back for meeting them. And I want to get your response after the break to that one. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll tackle this particular issue.
And you give me the chance.
Welcome back to Interface here on SABC3. Stephen, let's get straight into it. The allegations that you are thriving on greed, you are benefiting only a few people that are linked to the ANC Youth League, and you are mismanaging money. What do you have to say to all that?
Well, I want to believe that Vusi himself does not agree with the one that says we are biased towards the people who are from the ANC Youth League, because it is not true. Secondly, it is not true that we are thriving on greed. I'm saying that young people are well within their rights to say we don't see what is being done, because the lives we are touching are but a drop in the ocean as compared to the backlogs that we are having. And the real question here, by the way, even the Stop NYDA campaign, if I were to put suggestions to that, I would say that it should be a campaign that drives everybody that is supposed to be contributing towards youth development to be contributing, not just focus at NYDA. Because if you want to look at the NYDA, personally, I think you need to talk about performance of the organization against what it has been said. By the way, these targets we're talking about are not targets that we are setting for ourselves, are targets that gets approved by cabinet, gets approved by presidency, get approved by treasurer. So it's not like we are loose, we do things the way we wish. So people must not say we are setting ourselves mediocre targets and so on. We set targets that can be reachable within the allocated resources. And if the people that are giving you money say, yes, we agree, or we want you to do more, that's exactly what we're expected to do. Now, we are saying that in the past 3 years, we have outperformed the targets that have been set to us. Vusi raises an issue here of a 5,000 rands on average per business that we're giving. Yeah. It is true, actually, yes. The average is around that figure. But the truth of the matter is that in the past few years, youth development institutions have been giving millions and millions, Vusi, to young people who started up news cafes, who started up big businesses and so on. We are sitting here with statistics that showed us when we took over the organization that 10% of those organizations that have been funded, those businesses that have been funded like that, live to see success beyond the period of time.
So how does it help to give the businesses 5,000 rand?
We want to explain that. Now, what we have thought would be the way to go about is to build entrepreneurs, not to only dish out funding. Now, in our program that we are giving, we are not only saying to people, come and get loans, but we are giving them entrepreneurship development training. We are giving them access to skills development training as one package intervention. We are starting them small. It's a deliberate move. It's not something that happened by mistake or something that, just came through the window. It's a deliberate move. It's a strategic move that we have decided to actually engage on. We are not a commercial bank. We are a developmental institution.
But Stephen, you're asking for 950 million rands now, close to R1 billion from the government.
We have been asking for that for the past 3 years.
You're asking for that amount of money. And the question from young people, even via our Facebook page, is what are you going to do with that money that you were not able to do with the 400 million that you had? Because the bulk of that money will also go towards your operational costs.
No, it's not true. If you know statistics and percentages, how they work, if you are going to the very same stuff that I'm having now, going to put about 300 million more, that 42% will suddenly change to be about 23 or 21%. That's what the effect will be. So you will begin to speak about NYDA is now spending, but the staff would not be retrenched. They will still be there, just there will be more money for programs and projects, and that is what we're asking for. We have a business case that we have developed. We are not just asking for money for the fun of it. We have indicated that these are the targets we'd like to reach. These are the lives we'd like to touch of young people. So if a young person is interested, even Vusa, I'm inviting him, if you're interested in finding out what is this 1 billion being sought for, we are able to open our books and show you that.
I'm not convinced. With respect to Stephen, I really am not convinced, because I've not yet had the opportunity to dissect the nitty-gritties of their business case. But let me just make one final point, and there's a point I'm saying this. So, Stephen makes a very valid point around how they're not a commercial institution, they're not a bank. I find that interesting, because the NYDA gets grant funding from government, but lends it out to businesses at interest prime plus. What that means to you and I as business people, I'm an entrepreneur, is that if I'm running a business and I'm generating an average of 15% GP in my business, I'm underwater if the NYDA funds me, because I'm generating 15%, I've got to pay them back at prime, and they're adding a risk premium. Now, the NYDA as a developmental institution ought not to have gone that direction. What they actually ought to be doing is giving the money at a cost-to-cost rate, but they're not doing that. So at the heart of the entire discussion we need to be having around as young people is the NYDA, and the reason we're questioning the effectiveness of it is the entire structuring is wrong.
And in fact, I read somewhere that you are proposing a different model. You're saying that should be something different that should be done. What are you putting on the table?
They have to move in a completely venture capitalist direction. Stephen is of the view that they're losing too much money. I'm of the view, and this is my personal point of view, but I'm of the view they're not losing enough money. Because really the only way we're going to create our own Mark Zuckerbergs in this country is if we create 100 failures. You have to create 100 failures to create 100,000 jobs. That's economies of scale, and that's how it works. But it needs bravery, it needs courage, and it needs leaders who are not afraid to lose money. You can't, as the NYDA, saying we're lending money from government, we're going to give it to young people, and we're going to charge those young people money, and we're going to require surety, and we're going to need security, because then I might as well go to FNB, who, by the way, will give me a better rate.
We're running out of time, and Stephen, I want to give you a chance to wrap up and give us your final views.
Thank you very much.
I just want to give you a chance to tell us, how is the campaign going? You wanted to attract about 100,000 signatures. You only have 1,000. Isn't that young people saying, please stuff you, we're not interested in what you have to say?
That's an interesting point. So this is my perspective. I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman. I read P&Ls and I make tactical and strategic decisions about my businesses. That's what I do. And so what a lot of people don't know is Uvusi, outside a motivational speaker, is actually an entrepreneur. I run several businesses. But to answer your question more directly, I am not the person who ought to be driving the campaign. We've got young people driving it, and young people must be the ones watching this program, making a decision as to whether or not the campaign carries flaws, and whether or not the campaign is plausible.
They're not interested.
Well, no. Can I just correct that? That's not true.
Well, 1,000 versus 100,000?
Well, if Vusi had bothered to come to the NYDA office or just to give us a ring, he would have known better things than he is basing his arguments on. The first one is the interest rate. We inherited an interest rate. That was exactly how he speaks about it. But before the board ended its term, it has revised that interest rate model. We're no longer charging prime rate plus. We're charging fairly 6% and nothing else, and it's due to the fact that we have recognized that we're a developmental institution and we do not want to make profit out of young people. But there's got to be an obligation for a young person who starts a business to say, I am prepared to actually commit to this business.
And we have got to leave it there. Vusi, we will be tracking your progress. We'll see how many other thousands are joining in, young people saying, do stop the NYDA. And Stephen, we will be checking on you to see if you are delivering on your promise to young people. But thank you so much to both of you for coming through.
Thank you, madam.
And thank you for your thoughts and your insights. And that's how we come to the end of Interface this evening. Thank you so much for participating. Remember, we can continue the discussion. Interface on SABC3 at sabc.co.za. Catch us next time, same place. Good night.